families have gathered to lead the way to better relationships. Our special guest today, Jerry Mathers, who is still the Beaver, tells us his secrets about getting along with his in-laws. Now please welcome Dr. Joyce Brothers.
Special guest today, Jerry Mathers, will be participating in this conversation, and it will be fun to get his opinion on family living, since he spent a good part of his life living with two families, the Beaver family and his own family. I always enjoyed today's special guest on television. He was the Beaver, and he's still the Beaver on his new series for the Disney Channel. Please welcome Jerry Mathers.
Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Jerry, how does it feel to be still the Beaver?
It feels very, very good. Still the Beaver is something that I'm very proud of, because I'm very proud of Leave It to Beaver, and it's almost an extension of it. It's good family programming. It's been around for a long time. It stood the test of time, and now I'm able to bring it back along with a lot of my very, very good friends. And so it's something I'm very proud of.
When looking back, when you see yourself on television, how are you different from that character that you played?
Well, it's very, very hard to say that I'm different, but it's not, I think, just me. The Beaver character, as a general character, is an almost everyman character. I think even boys and girls all did the same thing that Beaver did when they grew up. All those shows from Leave It to Beaver were from real life. So they just weren't people going out and making up stories. Those things really happen to kids. And so I'm like the character, only in that I think most kids have had those same experiences.
Well, little girls in the past weren't allowed as many experiences as little boys. How can it relate to their lives?
Well, I think everyone has done things like, I know one of the shows on Leave It to Beaver, we sent away for something in the mail, and then we started getting these horrible letters back that said, you're going to jail because you didn't pay for it. I think everybody's had those kind of experiences. Maybe everyone hasn't crawled up in a teacup and fallen into a soup bowl and stayed there overnight, but they've all had similar experiences.
What do your kids say when they see you as a little boy? I mean, here's Daddy and little Daddy.
That's kind of funny. Now, they relate to it, I think, like home movies, and they don't think too much about it. They'd probably think it was much stranger if I wasn't on, because here I'm on every day, so they can get up at, I think, 8:30, turn it on and watch it every day. They have a lot more problems relating to things that I do now, because they'll see me, I leave, and they see me wearing certain clothes, and I come home and I say, well, I've been on this show. And then they maybe watch it that week or even that night, and I'm not on. And then 8, 10 weeks later, I'll be sitting next to them, and they look up. And as a little boy, they can relate to that. They can say, well, I'm little now, and I'm growing up, and you were little then, and now you've grown up. When I'm sitting right next to them, and they look at the television, and it's their dad, but I'm on television, and yet I'm next to them, that's a little harder for them to understand.
How old are they?
Well, I have a 2-year-old, and that's the one that's really hard to understand. The 6-year-old is kind of getting it. Of course, the 12-year-old knows everything.
Oh, well, sure. That's the time when we know the most. We get dumber from that point on.
From that point on, you know, I've never learned that much again.
What was it like for you growing up, being busy doing a television series? Did you lose some childhood?
I think I gained a whole lot of childhood. I gained it because I met some of the most interesting people in the television industry, and I find those people, as far as technicians and people like that, I'd go to work every day, and I called it work because that's what it was. I'd also go to school. But there were technicians there that worked with the mill and all the greats, and they'd sit around and tell stories and say, do you know what happened on this show and that movie? And you just can't get experiences like that. Sadly to say, most of those people have passed away now, but I can still remember them and all their great stories.
Well, what was high school like for you? Was it normal, abnormal?
Well, it was very different because I went through the studio schools from the first grade right up all the elementary grades. I went to studio school, and then Leave It to Beaver ended, and that actually the summer had summer vacation and went right to a high school. It was kind of funny because when Leave It to Beaver was on prime time, it was thought of as an adult show. In fact, it showed like on Thursday nights at 9 o'clock and maybe Wednesdays at 9:30, but very, very late. So most of the people in my high school knew that I'd been an actor, but they didn't know me from Leave It to Beaver. So I had a very, very normal high school life. And of course, another thing that helped me was one of the things I really wanted to do was play sports, because while I was at the studio school, Tony Dow and myself were the only students, and so I didn't get to play any team sports. And the thing, I guess the grass is always greener on the other side. I wanted to go to school, I wanted to play sports. And so they had spring football training before I actually started school. So I went about 3 weeks early, made the football team. Of course, I knew all the jocks in the school then, and of course I got along a lot better.
How important was your education? How important is it really in your life?
Well, education is kind of a funny thing. In some ways, it's very important, and in other ways, it's not. It's only a training ground, really. It trains you how to think. When you go to high school, elementary school, or college, it's basically just a training ground. I know a lot of people that haven't gone to college know a lot more than I do because they've been out in the world and trained. So, as a mental discipline, it's very, very good. But a lot of people that can give themselves self-discipline, I think, are just as far. I have a green philosophy, and I think some people are way years ahead of me.
Well, you went to college after Leave It to the Beaver ended, or?
Yes, in fact, I went to high school, and I was in the service for about 6 years, and then I went to college.
What did you studied philosophy in college?
At Berkeley.
Did that help you in everyday life? I mean, can you say what would Plato have said at this moment?
No, as I say, Berkeley is a very, very analytic school, and consequently, people think that philosophy majors just basically go out in a park and sit by a tree. When I was in school, that's not really true. When I was in school, we were training about 50 to 75 typewritten pages a week. It's very analytic and a lot of logic. So it helps you as a discipline. It trains you how to think and how to look at problems, possibly solve them, possibly see that some have no solution, to move on to other things.
How are your own children different from the way you were as a child?
Well, Joyce, that's really hard to say because I had such a different upbringing just because of being at the studio every day. Basically, I had 65, maybe 70 surrogate parents. All the people that were the technicians on our show, their jobs really depended on me being happy, and they'd sit around, and as I said, we'd have great talks. My children just have me, sad to say. And
well, you do have some great talks.
We have great talks. But, so they're very, very different, but I think that's part of me having been an actor as a child.
I keep meeting people who were child actors or actresses, and they seem to have led such wholesome, nice lives. And then I read a book which says, don't let your child be a child actor, it hurts them, and so on. I don't really see that at all.
Well, there are two things. First of all, you really have to want to do it because before you get a series or while you're doing something else, it's very, very hard, especially when you go on interviews. I think that's the hardest thing for child actors and adult actors also, because you walk in a room, you meet somebody, and they look at you, and then they say no, and you have no idea. But it may be that you have the wrong color eyes, the wrong color hair, but it's like taking a test at school and having someone say you failed and not tell you why. And then you come for the next job maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, and they say, oh, you're wonderful, and they hire you. But that last job, a lot of times that can be a very, not damaging, but very discouraging thing to happen, especially to a child. So it's very, very hard to be a child actor. I was just very lucky. As I say, when I got Leave It to Beaver, I worked for many, many years, didn't have to go on any interviews.
Well, how important is success to you?
Well, success is in some ways important to me because I have a family. I wouldn't want to be unsuccessful and be maybe not able to support them. But as far as maybe shining or something like that, it's not really that important to me. As long as I can support my family and be happy, and I am very happy, so I guess I'm successful.
I think success is only success in our own terms. Sometimes if we accept society's definition of success, it can be meaningless to us. I think we can think right offhand of some of the people who achieved society's definition of success and found it very unsatisfying. Marilyn Monroe, John Belushi, so that I think when people think about success, they ought to say, what does success mean to me? Does it mean achievement? Does it mean making a lot of money? Does it mean a child who throws his arms around you and say, I love you, Mommy, I love you, Daddy?
That's better than that.
So it has to be in our terms only. With your children, are you raising them permissive or strict?
Well, then again, you get into definitions, and you have to compare them to other people's children. I would say in some things I'm probably very permissive, and yet in other things I'm very strict.
For example, if I came to you and said, Daddy, can I have some ice cream? what would you say to me?
It would depend on if you had lunch, breakfast, dinner, what time of the day it was. Take a lot of things into consideration. Now,
of course, I cried a lot.
Then you definitely wouldn't get any ice cream. That would put you way at the end of the line.
To me, as a psychologist, a very new study shows that it doesn't matter whether children are brought up in a strict way or in a permissive way, as long as that comes from a guidance principle. That is, those children who are brought up permissively without any rules are very unhappy kids. But if they're brought up permissively to make their own decisions, to see how their decisions work out, where the parent is aiming them at a point where they can, as you say, when you're rejected as an actor, you never know the reason why. But if you bring somebody up permissively and they know always every step of the way why this is okay and why this is not, as it turns out, children do just as well whether they're raised permissively or they're raised in a strict authoritarian way.
I think they like boundaries. They like to know where they can go to. As long as you can say that, as long as, and you want them to be able to think for themselves and say, yes, maybe I can go beyond this boundary, but it's not going to be exactly what I wanted to do because maybe the parents would be mad or whatever. I think children like boundaries and being told not exactly what to do. They like that freedom, but they want to know how far they can go before they're really in trouble.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Are you a well-disciplined person?
I am in some ways. Of course, as an actor, you have to be. I have to be at the studio every day at 6 o'clock, and if I'm late, I'm in not a lot of trouble, but a lot of people's lives are affected by it. I have to know all my lines. So in those ways, I'm very disciplined. But because of that, in other things, I'm not very disciplined. I know when I go home, I don't hang up all my clothes exactly right. And
I know I heard from your wife.
so in some things I'm very disciplined, and in others I'm not.
What are your goals for you and your family?
To be happy, and to make all of them as happy as I can make.
But happiness is a byproduct. You can't aim at happiness because you never know what's going to bring you happiness. What more specifically would you say is a goal for you?
A goal? I don't really, I know this is probably very bad, but I don't really set goals. I live basically day to day in that, and I say happiness. As long as I feel good about myself and feel good about my family, and I feel good about them, and because I think they feel good, then I'm happy. So maybe that's what it is. We all feel good about each other.
Good. Now it's the time for us to take some phone calls. Okay. On any subject, would you join me?
I'd be happy to.
Let's see who's on the line. What about your kids? How did you move this one?
I have a 2.5-year-old, and we did do exactly as you said. As soon as she could crawl out, there was no sense really putting her in the crib anymore, except for falling out. And we put a rail across it so that she couldn't actually fall out and put the bed up against the wall. That brought up an interesting point, though. What do you do when the child does come into your bed and say it's 1 or 2 in the morning, and all of a sudden you're there, you're trying to sleep, you may have to go to work, and you do have a small child coming in there, and therefore the child, mom says, "Hi, Daddy, get up." And it's 3 in the morning.
We're out of time today. I want to thank my special guest, Jerry Mathers.
Thank you.
Thank you.